I again welcome you all. Uh, Let me introduce Sachin Chaturvedi ji. Professor Sachin Chaturvedi is a very dear friend. Uh, and I have a privilege that, like Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister, I keep on seeking his advices and his references to many of my copies on economy. He is my regular check. And in last 4 years, he has been playing a very pivotal role in RBI as well. He's part of their board and functional director there. Plus, he also sits on the board of Delhi University. He is helping them to chart a way forward for not only to improve their educational imparting skills, but also improving the skills of the students there. He also leads a think tank backed by Ministry of External Affairs, RIS in Delhi, and he's helping Government of India to build many of these knowledge based on the trade economics and helps in the trade negotiations. He was regularly helping them with the various multilaterals and bilaterals. I welcome Sachin ji on this platform. Sachin ji, the discussion is on Madhya Pradesh. Chief Minister Saab was in Delhi and he talked about this 550 billion plan that Madhya Pradesh wants to execute in country's $5 trillion dream. So country will be growing at double the pace to achieve $5 trillion this thing. And you think that Madhya Pradesh can grow 4 times in the same time frame. So I'm sure you must be having a blueprint. So I want to understand from you that, how you want, this state to grow. This state is very diverse, not only, from the environment point of view, not only from the demographical point of view, but also on the economy front. There is agriculture, there is a substantial part logistics and manufacturing plays. So tell us, broadly how, you plan. How do you think that the state can, grow 4 times their GDP in next 4 or 5 years?
Thanks a lot, Anilesh ji, for having me here, and it's a pleasure. Welcome to the city of Bhopal. I think 3-4 points I would like to make right at the outset. First and foremost, I think that we should be completely concerned about is the whole process of economic growth and development, how they happen, how this interplay actually moves. And globally, several economists have pointed out, particularly Danny Rodrigues and others, a school of thought which is very different from the Chicago school, which is very much about monetization or financialization of the economy. So from that point of view, how you leverage development, how you bring in development. And the emphasis is on institutions. And this, I think, now is a very well-recognized reality that you have to have good institutions. And those good institutions should be building up the gaps, the larger target, and the potential and its realization. So from that point of view, as we are seeing, Madhya Pradesh required a huge ecosystem. And that, I think, 50% of the task is done if you have good institutions which are in place. And for that matter, I think, I suppose many other institutes also require, but Madhya Pradesh definitely, since I am looking after the process of planning and its connect with the quality of work that's being done. So what we have done right at the outset and as part of the $550 billion roadmap, the first thing is to look at the institutions, and within institutions, the first thing is to have right statistics, right numbers. And unfortunately, Anilesh ji, in last 40 years of our sort of national growth process, and also if you delineate the state level interventions, we haven't developed the statistical system that is required. So as a result, what happens is state statistical system doesn't have the ability to develop coefficients. And as a result, we depend on the coefficients that have to come in. Till 1974, India used to collect 70% of statistics from the field, and only remaining used to be the center's contribution in terms of extrapolations. But after that, the situation has reversed. Only 30% is the collection from the ground. Rest is coming in terms of extrapolation. So I give you one small example. There is this annual survey of industries. In Madhya Pradesh, we have something like 4,677 factories on the ground. And the annual survey of industries, ASI, covers only 60 units. And those units are defined. So when I took over this position last May, I found out how many units were closed after COVID. What happened during the COVID crisis, the first wave, the second wave. And there was no answer because there are no numbers. No one is collecting them. And we are depending on the central statistical agencies to have the number. So I persuaded, and fortunately, Chief Minister is extremely open, extremely accepting new ideas. And 27th of June, the cabinet passed setting up of Agriculture Statistical Commission. Then we started from the basics. Just last week I was here, and we did for the first time, can you believe, for the first time, 240 district-level statistical officers training program. You recall the meeting we had with N.K. Singh just a couple of months back, and we were discussing about the 15th Finance Commission report, which has given a huge outlay to district administration, the third tier in our democracy. But if they don't have institutions, how are you going to go forward? If you don't have numbers, how are you going to go forward? You have no idea how much they are doing, what kind of impact. So you require right numbers, right institutions to come in. The second point comes in terms of what role academic institutions are playing. If you look at the growth of Bangalore, you look at the growth of Hyderabad, you see a huge connect with the research institutions, be that in the realm of information technology or I would say even biological sciences. The statistics that is coming out now is 60 to 70% of startups in Hyderabad are based on local science institutions. Where are those institutions in Madhya Pradesh? So we identified Bhopal has some 4 leading institutions, including law and legal setups here. And Indore has the industrial power, the industrial units. How do you connect them? So with agencies like World Bank and Asian Development Bank, we are discussing if there is a possibility of sort of Bhopal, Indore industrial corridor. Can we have a city in between that's providing the larger leeway? So Anilesh ji, the short point is, how do you create institutions and how do you leverage institutions for collective economic development? So we are trying to see these linkages. Even one small example I give you, the quality of PhD research here. And for the first time we did from the, there is a school of governance here which Madhya Pradesh is trying to connect with the planning process. So that's School of Good Governance established in 2007, actually came into a full-fledged existence in 2014 with their own campus, etc. It's called Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Good Governance and Policy Analysis, AIGGPA. So this ACPA, they did a couple of surveys and found out what kind of gaps are there in education system, how do you improve the quality. So we did a PhD colloquium there, and can you believe the first year PhD students, we got application from 380 students from all over Madhya Pradesh universities. So then with governor, we discussed that as you go to convocations, and the governor, I do not know whether you had chance to meet him, but you should meet him. 2 things he's pressing for. One, quality of education in universities. And second is sickle cell and anemia. It's another major challenge for Madhya Pradesh. So we are saying that if you are going to convocations, you are reviving convocations, please encourage universities to have open PhD examination. In any foreign university you go anywhere, even now in Delhi University for tickets at Delhi School of Economics, we are having these examinations. So PhD exams are open viva. They are not closed door examination as is the case here. Because then you compromise quality. So you need good quality. So one is this institution, academic quality, good research, etc. The second part of our roadmap is the knowledge sector. Our calculation, Anilesh ji, is that if Madhya Pradesh gets into semiconductor industry, if Madhya Pradesh gets into bioeconomy, the scope for potential for our economic growth is 1:4%. So if we are investing, say, $280 million. Our expectation would be in 3 years, they would be at least $5 to $6 billion their contribution. And how they are going to do that, in what ways spillover effects would come out, it's the strong connect with the academic institutions. I visited this Devi Ahilya Vishwavidyalaya in Indore. We met the life sciences, and you would be surprised. This scientist at the university has done a research. Soybean, Madhya Pradesh is the capital of the country for soybean. And the value addition is very little. It's the raw that we are exporting. So he extracted vitamin E and steroid from soybean. And now India is the first in terms of the quantum of steroid export. This firm that from Indore is exporting is India's largest firm to export steroids and world's 5th largest exporter of steroid. And what they are doing, they are extracting steroid from soybean. For that, for 2 stages of research, they don't have competence, and they rely on 2 universities in the US. So our point is, how do we amend Madhya Pradesh University Act to bring in scope for professors to have their own companies? And they then should get financial incentives to do better research and connect with the market and do the innovation. So my short point in terms of $550 billion roadmap, good institutions, financial expansion. Third is innovation system, institutional linkages with the institutional system. The fourth and the last is in terms of the role institutional finance can play. And for that, leveraging my position on the board of the Reserve Bank as board of the governors, we got Reserve Bank look into this whole question of how states like Madhya Pradesh expand credit. You would be surprised to know, till 2014, 6 states of the country had 80% in the total credit creation in the country. Thanks to Prime Minister Modi's intervention, in 2021, share of those 6 states has come down from 80% to 71%. But total deposits, these states had 87%, which has only come down to 74%. So you require more and more states to come in. And how states like Madhya Pradesh have better share. At this institute, AIGGPA, we did a study to show how tribal population has gone through this trap of money lenders. And this is not a new situation in Madhya Pradesh. I digged out the history, and to my utter shock found that in 1956, Madhya Pradesh versus some private entity, the case came to Supreme Court, where Supreme Court said that tribals are to be freed from money lenders. The response of the state government came not in 1956, but back in 1987, when Arjun Singh was the chief minister. It took them so many years to realize Supreme Court's direction. So there are issues which are traditional legacy issues. But I think institutional finance to expand manufacturing is extremely important for Madhya Pradesh. And for that matter, our point is that, as you heard Mr. Kesari explain you the agriculture growth rate, and Madhya Pradesh has done really wonders in terms of expansion of the share of agriculture. But now that has to be translated to manufacturing. Otherwise, agriculture would become, the success in agriculture would become cause of failure in many other areas, including FRBM. So we have already, in our report, those of you who are interested should read this. The full report is available on the State Planning Commission's, Niti, Evam Planning Commission's website. We have analyzed these all 5 sectors. The 6th and the last sector that we have analyzed is about the exports. Madhya Pradesh export stands at $7 billion at this point. And Anilesh ji, the challenge is Madhya Pradesh doesn't have any agency completely dedicated to exports or trade. So Rajya Niti Aayog prepared a roadmap. Fortunately, industry department came on board, full support from, and you would have very bright officer Sanjay Shukla, industry secretary. He spent a lot of time And I could convince him to focus not just on export, but on trade. And this is a big debate nationally we should also have, where we see import as bad and export as good. And as a result, we are ending up in a situation where we are undermining the fact that 38% of our exports are import dependent. So you have to have, but the choice is where do you import from? And that's where state, and for that matter, state not only at state level in Madhya Pradesh, but at the national level also, you need to do hand-holding of the private sector where to import from. Otherwise, they all are landing up in China. And we are importing from China. You have seen my report that we did for National Security Advisor, NSA, right at the time of the Doklam crisis, on how our imports have multiplied from China. So states have to also be conscientious of the fact how and from where we are importing. So Madhya Pradesh has already established Madhya Pradesh Trade Promotion Council. So these are the 6 areas of $550 billion dream.
If I take your last point first about the exports, the biggest challenge for any state to accelerate growth is to look at new products, right? Semiconductor, you said one, but it's very, very water conducive, and it requires a lot of water. Madhya Pradesh doesn't have the advantage of being a water surplus state. So what sort of new products are you looking at which can accelerate, say, in next 5 years, Madhya Pradesh's growth? So is there any listing which you have done, prioritizing which you have done?
What we have said, Anilesh, in our report is to identify low-end semiconductor industry. So on the high end, the intensity of resources, particularly the water that you mentioned, is extremely high. But here, you would have to realize the baseline. And baseline in Madhya Pradesh is pretty weak when it comes to manufacturing. So you have to start from basics. So fabrication unit within semiconductor is something that you can start with. And then you can think of how to go up in the ladder. Same applies to bioeconomy that we are envisaging. If you look at the COVID crisis and our inability to have diagnostic kits being produced here, we had to borrow it from other states to satisfy our own requirement. Madhya Pradesh has all the essentials. Madhya Pradesh has ASA, Madhya Pradesh has the All India Institute of Medical Sciences here, and a very good life science department in at least 2 or 3 universities. If we connect that, what kind of areas we can enter in? And as I told you, the vitamin E market, the steroid market, and like that, there are 7 other markets that we have identified in the bioeconomy cluster itself. The finance minister's budget, if you recall, last year, the scope was kept for financing machinery that is needed for bioethanol. Madhya Pradesh is leading. We have already passed the resolutions. So if we enter into low-end manufacturing, which is not technology intensive in that sense, probably you can start much faster. And that's where we need to improve the competitive edge. And apart from product, Madhya Pradesh being in the center, we have never thought of that as Madhya Pradesh to emerge as the logistics hub. And there you can take advantage of the expansion of the Greater Noida, the proximity of Gwalior to Agra, the advantage of Nagpur-Jabalpur industrial corridor connect, the whole logistics hub, if Madhya Pradesh has to emerge, if the domestic value chains which are coming in and Madhya Pradesh becomes part of that process, the advantages even with low manufacturing end would be extremely high. And those dividends, unfortunately, we have not seen before. But I'm sure in days to come, as we have envisaged and recommended, and now we are working with all the departments to see in what way manufacturing expansion can do. And by the way, in the report, Anileshji, we have delineated industrial manufacturing expansion on 2 levels. One, whether we can have labor-intensive industry. So textile, Madhya Pradesh is a big hub for cotton production. But textile edge, we lost out. Madhya Pradesh had at some point in Indore, we had around 8 textile mills. In Ujjain, we had around 7. The number got reduced over the years thanks to the economic reforms, and we undermined Paul Sweezy and many other economists to see what sequence we should follow.
But Sachinji, you also have to look at, food processing in a way, because, I was talking to many of the farmers and people who are into agriculture. They were saying that the focus is largely on the, by default, many of the produce which Madhya Pradesh is making, they are tradable commodities. They are not the processing variants. Like citrus, Madhya Pradesh is one of the largest citrus producer, but those produce are table variants. They are not processing variants. For changing those products to the industrial products, you not only require change in the product, but also reforms in the system which is in place. And thirdly, you will also have to change the way agriculture has been done in the state. So how are you, dealing with these type of
No, some of this, Anilesh, if you travel across, which I did, at least 19 districts of Madhya Pradesh I have traveled across, and I realized that quite a few firms who are based in Mumbai or in Ahmedabad are using Madhya Pradesh as a production center. So a lot of our agriculture produce, like the whole set of banana being produced in Madhya Pradesh, are actually exported to Dubai and other places from Mumbai. So they do not get registered as part of production of Madhya Pradesh, because the firms are registered in Mumbai and they register quantum of export as if it is going from Maharashtra and not from Madhya Pradesh. So that's one sort of trouble we have in terms of accounting for numbers. So that is one. But second, you are absolutely right that we need value addition within agriculture. And that's why I said that the raw material export and share of Madhya Pradesh in raw material is huge. Value addition is very little. How do we bring that in? We did a huge study in terms of medicinal and aromatic plants. And not now, but in 2014-15, I had worked on India's overall export of medicinal and aromatic plant. If you see India's export of Aayog products, particularly raw material, our share in the total export of raw material has expanded from 40% to 90%. The Tuticorin is the main hub for export of almost 90% of these medicinal aromatic plant, 50% of which comes from Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh. No value addition. So we have introduced a scheme called Devaranya, and this Devaranya would be inaugurated by CM. Already the initial work, etc., has been done, in which we are saying that you have to have community forest rights, you have to have value addition there. Fortunately, Ayush Ministry of the central government has come forward. And again, a very bright principal secretary here is pushing in the idea to have the value addition in the produce that we are going to have from medicinal aromatic plants. So Madhya Pradesh then would emerge as one of the largest exporter of value-added medicinal and aromatic plant. So the whole emphasis that Prime Minister is creating globally, be that BRICS or the Jamnagar Ayush Center, the industry has to come up. And that industry, Madhya Pradesh would be able to bridge in the national gap in a huge way.
Thank you, Sachinji. But when you say that 550 contribution will come from Madhya Pradesh in the $5 trillion economy, so which states do you think that they are coming down and Madhya Pradesh contribution will be going up? Because I checked up the numbers. So Indian growth will be of less than double the size. And Madhya Pradesh, you are envisaging more than 4%. So some states needs to come down. So where do you see this thing coming down?
No, I think it would be collective gain for everyone. Prime Minister's idea of 5 trillion, I think, would bypass if all states are going to embrace the idea. The idea is to have localization of development. And that, I think, is something states are taking quite seriously. Uttar Pradesh, you have seen some time back, you all were in West Bengal, you have seen. So some gaps with some states, which one are going down, but I don't have to comment on that. But definitely, I think we need to see how this localization would bring in a betterment for everyone.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. We all will be vocal for local. And I really thank you that you have taken your time out. You have flown in from Delhi, especially for this thing. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for coming. And thanks all for being with us.